company, would anyone be complaining about the complexity? Would anyone be like, oh, it's too hard for us to like bust out our credit cards and like give it to the company? No, of course not. But when it's the money coming our way, it's like, oh no, too complicated. So dumb. We are outgunned by these companies. We're just human beings living our lives, trying to hang out with our friends and our family. And then the tech companies are getting more and more powerful. And you know what you would need? You would need an effective government to balance the scales. But that is not what we have, San Francisco. We have this decades behind the curve government that does not understand technology in the least. And we know that from a few things. Number one, we got rid of the Office of Technology Assessment in 1995. I guess they figured we'd invented everything by then. They were like, oh, it's 95. Nothing new is going to come out. Let's get rid of that. And you all saw the testimony when Mark Zuckerberg showed up to Congress. He got like the most dumb questions imaginable. You remember that? Not this time, but the time before. They got a little bit better this new time. But it's not like these visits were surprises. It's not like he showed up and it was like, hey, and they were like, oh, I got to think of a smart question. Those questions were prepared weeks in advance by their staff. And they were asking stupid questions like, you're laughing because it's true. They were asking stupid questions like, how does Facebook make money? You remember that? These are our lawmakers. They're decades behind the curve. I gotta say, a lot of them have never read an email in their lives. Oh, you know, he's nodding. It's true. It's true. I know this. I know teams. They're actually dedicated staffers that like read their emails to them. Do we want a government where people have never read an email? Oh, we need a government of 2019 and 2020 to solve the problems of today. Am I right, San Francisco? So this freedom dividend, it is not my idea. It is a deeply American idea. It has been with us from the beginning. In Alaska, they call this the oil check, and they love it. We're going to call this the tech check, and all of America's going to love it. Because in real life, after I'm president and we all have this dividend in our accounts, how will we spend the money in real life? Where will it go? I think someone yelled marijuana. It will go to college. It will go to daycare expenses. It will go to local businesses. How much of it would stay around where we live? Most all of it. This is the trickle-up economy from our people, our families, and our communities up. And we know that this would work. We have to rewrite the rules of the 21st century so that they work for us. $1,000 a month would make us all stronger, healthier, mentally healthier, less stressed out, would improve our decision making, would improve our relationships, would decrease domestic violence, it would decrease hospital visits. This is the economy that we can create for ourselves, in large part because the market now is a terrible determinant of how much we're worth. There might have been some time decades ago where it sort of made sense, but it does not make sense today. Here are things that are the market either values at zero or undervalues very systematically. Parenting, caregiving, nurturing, arts, creativity, volunteering, journalism, and very, very often in our country, unfortunately, women and underrepresented minorities, people of color. The market is turning on us all. It's zeroing us out. And I'm saying around the country, it does not matter if Fred is an excellent, hardworking, industrious truck driver or not. The robot truck can outcompete him either way. It doesn't matter if the radiologist really studied hard in med school and references as many films as they can. The artificial intelligence can see shades of gray on the film that the human eye cannot, and can reference millions of data points, much more than any human doctor. We are confusing in this country economic and human value, and it threatens to destroy us. We have to let people know that we have value regardless of what the market is saying. This is an economy that would actually work for us, that we'll be proud to pass along to our kids. And the measurements of today are leading us in the wrong direction. Right now, GDP's at record highs. Also at record highs in the United States of America are stress levels, anxiety, mental illness, student loan debt, financial insecurity, even suicides and drug overdoses. It has gotten so bad that life expectancy in the United States of America has declined for 3 years in a row because suicides and drug overdoses have gone to record unprecedented levels and have overtaken vehicle deaths for the first time in American history. You all know the last time America's life expectancy declined 3 years in a row? I sense there's some yang gang here. Because you know it was the Spanish flu of 1918, a global pandemic 100 years ago that killed millions of people. That's the last time American life expectancy declined for 3 years in a row. This is in part because it is highly unusual for life expectancy to decline in a developed country at all. That is not normal. We are at a different point in American history, and yet we're getting beaten over the head by the fact that GDP is at record highs. And one thing I've been saying around the country, how much is my wife's work taking care of our 2 boys, one of whom is autistic? How much of that is included in GDP every year? Zero, and we know that is the opposite of the truth. Am I right, San Francisco? And I'm very happy to say Evelyn is going to be hitting the trail with me starting next week in Iowa. Hey, Evelyn, I hope you're hearing this at home. And if you think that I've got some things going for me, holy crap, wait until you see Evelyn. You'll be like, forget about Andrew. Well, Evelyn, and it's true, she's a powerhouse, she's so badass, and when America meets her, they're going to find out just how lucky a man I am. And I know that her work is among the most challenging and vital work being done at any point in the economy, certainly more valuable than the work of the average hedge fund manager or management consultant, or like I was for 5 unhappy months, a corporate lawyer. No offense to any lawyers here, it's cool, I get it. But I used to call my old law firm a temple to the squandering of human potential. It's true. Because you had some very, very bright people doing some really shitty work. So if GDP is at record highs and our life expectancy is heading the other direction, I would suggest to you all that maybe GDP doesn't get it right. Instead of GDP, we should be measuring how we are doing. Things like our own health and life expectancy. How about our own mental health and freedom from substance abuse? How about childhood success rates? How about proportion of elderly Americans who can retire with dignity? How about clean air and clean water? These are the true measurements of progress in the 21st century. And as your president, I will be thrilled to tear up GDP and say this is 100 years old, it is out of date, and we are going to modernize to a scorecard that includes the things that are important to us. And then I'll present the real measurements to you all every year at the State of the Union. I'll be the first president to use a PowerPoint deck at the State of the Union. Break out the PowerPoint, chant, yang, yang. I can't wait to do it. And we're going to have a contest to figure out which font is I'm going to use. Comic Sans. And while I'm on the topic, we have to fight climate change yesterday. And we see what's going on right here in the Bay Area. You have rolling blackouts because of rampant wildfires. And you are looking around, you're saying, what is going on? I thought I lived in the United States of America, the most advanced country in the world, and we have rolling blackouts because of potential wildfires? And let's trace the steps. Why the heck are these wildfires happening? It's true, there are 4 words, P, G, and E. I think those are technically words. A letter's a word, actually, if you do it like that. But PG&E is an emblem. We know exactly what their incentives are. Their incentives are to cut corners and try and make as much money as possible for their shareholders. So what happens? They're like, maybe we don't need to maintain that jumper so much. And it's like, let's just make the check schedule like a little bit longer. Let's make the replacement schedule a little bit longer. Let's see if we can maintain the shelf life of this equipment like a little longer than it's intended. And we're supposed to replace it. Maybe if we just put some duct tape on it, it'll be all right. Really? And then you cut corners long enough, and then we all pay the price. Am I right? Yeah! That is an emblem of what's happening in our country today. Everything revolves around the almighty dollar. If you're a PG&E executive, you don't get paid based upon our well-being or the uptime. You get paid based upon whether you can cut corners successfully enough to add another couple dimes to the bottom line. That's how your bonus is paid. And I say enough is enough. What do you think, San Francisco? The other reason why these wildfires are breaking out is that climate change has raced ahead of everything we're doing. We are only maintaining less than 10% of the national forest the way that experts say we should be. And as the earth has gotten warmer, it has turned our national forests and trees around the country into essentially tinder boxes, essentially wildfires waiting to happen. Now this might not sound sexy, but I'm proposing we quintuple the U.S. Forest Service so that we can actually maintain our forests in a way that we should be. This is 2019 and you see the needs are shooting up, but then does our government follow suit? No, of course not. They're like, oh, what did we do last year? Let's do that again this year. It just keeps on going, and then the needs just shoot on up. So as president, I say we actually modernize the way we manage our forest. And you know we could do so much more in terms of certainly manpower on the ground, but also technology, heat sensors, drones with fire retardant materials. Like we need to essentially stick technology on our forests in a way that would keep us safer and make it so that you can live your lives without having to worry about wildfires or rolling blackouts or PG&E and this nonsense. This is an emblem of what's gone wrong in the United States. Our government has failed, capitalism is failing us, and it's up to us to do better. This is the vision that we can take to the rest of the country as quickly as possible. And you're in a very special place here in San Francisco because all of you have friends who ask you what the future is going to look like. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, well, you would know. Yeah. And sometimes they ask you, it's like, hey, do you live in utopia or dystopia here in San Francisco? And you change your mind about that on the regular. You know what I mean? Like you do something, you're like, oh, definitely utopia. Then you're like, oh, definitely dystopia. Like same day. I get it. I've spent time here too. I've lived here for months of the year for the last 6 or 7 years. You all see the future coming, and it is up to you to take the country in a better direction. Now, California is not used to this, but you're going to have a vital role in determining who the next president of the United States is. I think you're looking at him, San Francisco. We can compete and win right here in California, am I right? I get along with Kamala, but there was one poll that had me outpolling Kamala right here in California. Your voting got moved up. This is very, very new to you, California, because ordinarily by the time it comes to you, the nomination has been decided. So you don't really know what this is like. But this time, you got moved up to Super Tuesday. You're going to be the 5th state to vote and the whole thing. And this race will not be decided by state number 5. I can virtually guarantee you that. You're gonna make your voice heard. Now, if you're not that into politics, let's try to do this. This will be fun. What's the first state to vote? Iowa. Some of you are like, huh? Number 1 is Iowa. What's number 2? What's number 3? Nevada. I know, that's a tricky one. That'll get you every time. And what's number 4? And what's number 5? That's right. You're going to have your chance to make your voice heard. Early voting starts in California 1 month early. So you can actually vote the same time as Iowa. Are you guys going to vote in February for the Yang Gang? Yeah, get your votes in early because those votes are count just like anyone else's. And then you can bug your friends and say, hey, we've got a month to rack up the vote by the time March 3rd rolls around, Super Tuesday. Like, we could be up to hundreds of thousands of voters before the polls even open on March 3rd. What do you think? I'm heading to Iowa next week for something called Yang-a-Palooza. I don't know if you heard about this. And Weezer's coming out and playing a concert in Des Moines. So we're going to fight it out in Iowa. We're going to fight it out in New Hampshire. We're going to do great in Nevada. I just came from there, and man, the Nevadans love this. In part because Nevada is number 1 in the entire country for the proportion of jobs that are going to get swallowed up by technology. If you think about the Nevada economy, the major employers, hospitality, gaming, retail, call centers, transportation, warehouse and fulfillment, it's the highest proportion of jobs in the country that are going to get blasted away by automation. And they know it. MGM just fired hundreds of workers and then brought in robot bartenders in their casinos. Now you boo, but we all know that the robot bartenders are pretty cool. The truth is that tourists kind of prefer them. They're like, hey, check out this robot bartender. And then they do a little video with themselves being like, check it out, it made me the drink. The robot bartenders cost about $250,000. So MGM looks up and says, $250,000. That will get me paid back in approximately, let's call it like 5-6 years. And they're like, done. Do you think MGM's going to be the last casino to make that move? No, because we live in a system where everything revolves around the bottom line of the almighty dollar. We are going to outperform in Nevada. We're going to do awesome in South Carolina, and then we're going to bring the football to you here in California. So this is new for you all, but you can make a massive difference in the course of our country's history. And as a matter of fact, the history of the entire species. Because if we take this vision, and I want you all to imagine it with me, the rest of the world right now is looking up being like, what the heck happened to the United States of America? Donald Trump, it's like a time warp. It's heading back in time. And I want you all to imagine in 2021 with President Andrew Yang, the rest of the world will be like, they turned that around in a hurry.
Yang beats Trump! Yang beats Trump!
That's right, Andrew Yang beats Donald Trump!
Yang beats Trump! Yang beats Trump! Yang beats Trump!
If this is a game of rock, paper, scissors, Donald Trump is a pair of scissors and I am the fucking rock, San Francisco! And if you ask Democrats around the country, what's their number one criteria for the nominee? Beat Donald Trump, that's right. And if you look at the numbers, you see that I am peeling off thousands of disaffected Trump voters, Republicans, Libertarians, Independents, as well as Democrats and progressives. I can build a much broader coalition to beat Donald Trump in 2020. Democrats around the country are thinking, who's going to beat Trump? Who's going to beat Trump? They have not figured out yet that Andrew Yang is going to beat Trump. But we're going to let them know, are we not, San Francisco? You can see it really clearly. The numbers are just going up and up to the right. And I want to walk through a little bit of why the polls do not actually measure our true strength as a movement. You know, raise your hand if you've been part of a political poll. Yeah, not many hands go up in this crowd. Most people that get polled get called on a landline. You shouldn't really boo landlines. I mean, it's not like, that's like booing like steam engines or something.
What's a landline?
What's a landline? This young person, exactly. So there are three things that have to happen for you to get polled. Number one, you have a landline. Number two, you're a registered Democrat, generally in one of the early states. And number three, you actually have to pick up that landline and have a conversation with a pollster.
What's a conversation?
The Yang Gang and landlines don't really overlap that much. And many of the people that are supporting our campaign are not registered Democrats. I suspect that applies to some of the people here in this crowd today. So the polls, even though they're going up and up, they do not measure our true strength. We are much stronger than the polls suppose. We see it, we feel it. Whenever I go to the early states, people are like, wow, this is a much bigger crowd than they thought. And I was like, I'm done being surprised now. Like now, you know, we go and like, I'm not surprised by anything anymore in this campaign. When America wakes up to the fact that I am as sure a bet as any candidate in the field, we're just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger and then change the course of history and shock the world come February. Donald Trump's our president in part because he got some of the problems right. He said he was going to make America great again. And then what did Hillary Clinton say in response? America's already great. Y'all remember that? And that was not the right answer.
No.
Oh no, I remember that. Yeah. I'm going to go down this road for a second. It's fun. There's here shouted out. She said that the DNC backed Hillary, and it's true they did. There's a chance that Bernie Sanders could have been the nominee last time if the DNC hadn't kneecapped the crap out of him. Like everyone here, I was thrilled to see Bernie Sanders so freaking strong and healthy at the last debate. His running for president, you actually hang out with the other candidates in the green rooms and at the fish fry and at the union halls. So we actually have like a bit of like a social circle going. I actually get text messages from some of the other candidates every once in a while. And I text them too. You know, we what do they say?
What do you say?
She yelled out, can I be your VP? I just want to give a shout out to that sign that says year-round daylight savings. I think we should pick one time and stick to it. What do you think, San Francisco? The fact is, when we switch back and forth by even that hour, it actually kills Americans because you're actually a little screwed up, you drive worse, and then there's like a spike in accidents that day. How many of you knew that?
It's so good.
Yeah. And we feel it. That 1 hour screws us all up, am I right?
Yeah.
And I say at this point, we have to acknowledge we're not a freaking agricultural economy anymore. Just pick one time and stick to it. For the sake of our kids, please. So the DNC did stick it to Bernie. I am now pals with some of the other candidates. We do have really fun, informal conversations. They haven't gotten around asking me to be my running mate just yet, but it's coming, am I right? But the DNC this time, they actually are trying to create as even a playing field as possible. It's one reason why, as long as we keep performing, we're gonna make every single debate between now and when voting starts. I already made the November debate, and I am pumped up for it. And I'll say too, I'm getting more and more comfortable up there. I hope you can feel it, Yang Gang. Was that first time I made a mistake of thinking it was actually a debate. And then, what was I thinking indeed? But I am a fast learner. And now I know exactly what I need to do up there, and I'm going to perform every single time. But I can't do it without you all. I need you to commit to a few things. Number one, raise your hand if you know someone in Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, or South Carolina. Raise your hand. Think about it for a sec. If you know that person, I need you to email them or text them or call them and say, hey, have you heard about Andrew Yang? Even if it's someone you haven't talked to in a while. It's going to be sort of an odd conversation. You're going to call and be like, hey, long lost cousin. It's been a long time. I'm going to make small talk with you a little bit. I'm going to ask you about your family I've never met. And then I'm going to be like, hey, have you heard about Andrew Yang? So number one, I need to reach out to your long-lost cousins, friends, and relatives in one of the early states. Can you do that, San Francisco? Number two, I need you to keep doing what you've been doing, which is spread the message to other people throughout your networks and around the country, because people know that you are closest to the pulse of what will happen in the future than anyone else they know. And so if you send them, how many of you have had this experience where you send someone an Andrew Yang video or something like that, and then they ignore it for a little while, but then they come back around days or even weeks later and are like, hey, I saw that Andrew Yang guy. Raise your hand if you had that experience. I need you to double down and keep doing that until you get all of your friends yanged. Can you do that for me, San Francisco? And the last thing I need you to do is to ride people and let them know that here in California, you all are going to decide who the next president of the United States is. And you can vote as early as the first week of February, and then we have an entire month to run up the score. So I know you have friends here in California that are not used to participating in either the political process or presidential elections. I need you to let them know that what you do in February and March can change the course of history for our country, for our world. We can build an economy that works for us. We can do what should have been done decades ago on climate change. We can start measuring our mental health as a key element of our country's progress. We can redefine our economy so that it revolves around our health and our values. But this will not be possible without all of you. I need your help, San Francisco. Let's do it. Let's make history together. Donald Trump's our president in part because he got some of the problems right. The issue is that his solutions were the opposite of what we need. His solutions were, we're going to build a wall, we're going to turn the clock back, we're going to bring the old jobs back. The country needs us to show a new path. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society as quickly as possible for the 21st century. We have to evolve in how we think about ourselves and our work and our value And I am the ideal man for that job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Let's make history, San Francisco. What does math stand for? Make America think harder, that's right. All we do is win, San Francisco. I love you. And I will see you in the White House in 2020. Thank you.